Rain hammered against the windshield as Ethan Carter's private jet touched down hours ahead of schedule. One of the youngest self-made billionaires in America, Ethan had built a technology empire from nothing. The media admired his success. Investors worshipped his instincts. But none of them knew the truth. For 15 years, Ethan had sacrificed birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas mornings, and quiet family dinners for meetings, acquisitions, and billion-dollar deals. He convinced himself that everything he was doing was for the people he loved. That night, fate had other plans. He walked through the front door of his mansion without warning, expecting silence. Instead, he heard soft piano music drifting through the hallway. What he discovered next would shatter every assumption he'd made about his family and change the meaning of success forever. But before we continue this unforgettable story, take a quick second to support the channel. If stories about kindness, second chances, and life-changing moments inspire you, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness of Power. And tell us in the comments, what city and country are you watching from? We love seeing where our amazing community is joining us from. Now, let's continue. Ethan quietly closed the front door behind him. Something felt different. Usually the house was perfectly still at this hour. Tonight, warm lights glowed throughout the mansion. He followed the sound of the piano toward the living room. Standing near the doorway, he froze. His 16-year-old daughter Lily sat at the grand piano, carefully playing the song Ethan's late mother used to sing when he was a child. His wife Sarah sat nearby, smiling through tears, and beside them was a little boy Ethan had never seen before. The child couldn't have been older than 8. His clothes were worn, his shoes were scuffed, yet his eyes sparkled with joy as he clapped after every note Lily played. Ethan stepped into the room. Everyone turned. Silence filled the air. "Dad?" Lily whispered, stunned. "You weren't supposed to be home until tomorrow." Ethan forced a smile. "I finished early." Then he looked toward the little boy. "And who is this?" The child immediately stood. "My name's Noah, sir." Before anyone else could answer, Ethan noticed something strange. Noah wore Ethan's old varsity jacket, the one he'd lost years ago. His confusion grew. Sarah gently invited Ethan to sit down. "We've been meaning to tell you." Ethan's heart tightened. She explained that 3 months earlier, Lily had volunteered at a local homeless shelter for a school project. There she'd met Noah. His mother had passed away from cancer. His father had disappeared years before. The shelter was overcrowded. Noah had no family willing to take him in. Lily couldn't stop thinking about him. So every weekend she visited. Then Sarah started coming too. Soon, Noah became part of their lives. They helped with school, bought him clothes, shared family dinners, celebrated birthdays. Eventually, they began the process of becoming his foster family. Ethan stared in disbelief. "My own family. And I knew nothing about this." Sarah looked down. "We tried to tell you. You were always in another meeting or another country. You always said you'd call back." The words hit harder than any business loss he'd ever experienced, because they were true. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Instead, he wandered through the mansion. Every hallway reminded him of moments he'd missed. Family photos he'd never posed for. Vacations he'd skipped. School awards he'd never attended. He entered his office. The shelves overflowed with trophies. Business awards, magazine covers, photos with presidents, CEOs, celebrities. For the first time, they looked meaningless. Then he noticed something sitting on his desk. A drawing, crayon, folded in half. It showed 4 people holding hands. Above them were the words, "My forever family." In the corner, Noah had drawn himself. Ethan wasn't included. The next morning, Ethan drove to the homeless shelter alone. No assistants, no security, no chauffeur. He introduced himself to the director. She recognized him immediately. "Mr. Carter." You've donated millions over the years." Ethan nodded quietly. Then she smiled sadly. "Money helps. But children remember faces more than checks." Those simple words stayed with him. She showed Ethan the room where Noah used to sleep. 8 metal beds, thin blankets, broken toys, one tiny shelf filled with donated books. Among them sat a faded notebook. The director handed it to Ethan. Noah left this behind. Inside were dozens of drawings. Most showed houses, families, birthday cakes, Christmas trees. Every drawing had one sentence. "Maybe next year I'll have a family." Ethan couldn't read another page. His vision blurred. For years he'd believed solving problems meant writing bigger checks. But this little boy hadn't dreamed about money. He'd dreamed about belonging. Over the next few weeks, Ethan quietly changed. He canceled meetings, declined speaking engagements, appointed a new CEO to handle daily operations. Wall Street thought he was making the biggest mistake of his career. His stock dropped. News headlines exploded. Friends questioned his sanity. Ethan didn't care. For the first time in years, he was home for breakfast. He drove Lily to school. He helped Noah with homework. He cooked terrible pancakes every Saturday. They laughed at how badly he burned them. Slowly, the mansion became a home. One evening, Noah asked Ethan a question. "Can I call you Dad someday?" The room became silent. Ethan felt tears forming. He knelt beside him. "You don't have to wait someday. You can call me Dad today." Noah threw his arms around him. Sarah cried openly. Lily hugged them both. It was the richest moment Ethan had ever experienced. Not because of money, because of love. Months later, the adoption became official. The courtroom overflowed with smiles. When the judge signed the final papers, Noah burst into tears. "So, nobody can take me away now?" The judge smiled. "No one." Ethan held his son's hand tightly. "You're home forever." Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded the billionaire. One journalist asked the obvious question. "Mr. Carter, you've stepped away from billions of dollars. Do you regret it?" Ethan looked at Noah, laughing beside Lily. Then at Sarah, he smiled. "I spent years building a company, but I almost lost the family I was building it for. The greatest investment you'll ever make isn't in stocks. It isn't in real estate. It isn't even in business. It's in the people waiting for you at home." The interview spread across America. Millions watched. Not because a billionaire had spoken, because a father finally understood what truly mattered. Noah graduated high school with honors. Lily became a music teacher, inspiring children through the same piano melodies that once filled their home. Ethan transformed one of his luxury hotels into housing for homeless families. Instead of writing checks from a distance, he visited every month. He knew children's names, played basketball with them, read bedtime stories. Because kindness wasn't something you could outsource. It had to be lived. One evening, long after the world had forgotten the headlines, Ethan sat on the porch watching the sunset. Noah joined him. "Dad? Yeah? Do you ever wish you hadn't come home early that day?" Ethan smiled. "If I hadn't, I would have kept chasing success and missed the greatest miracle of my life." The two sat together in peaceful silence as the sun disappeared below the horizon. And in that quiet moment, the billionaire realized he had never truly been wealthy until he found a family that measured riches not by dollars, but by love, forgiveness, and the courage to be present. Sometimes, the biggest surprise isn't what we find when we come home early. It's discovering that the people we love have been waiting for us all along.